He was left in a basket on a church doorstep.
Welcome to Soul Guide with Vondie Lozano, a show about past lives, life between lives, and this life.
Hey, everybody. Great to have you with us here today. I'm Vondie, and this is Soul Guide. And today we're transitioning to a series on brave souls. And my very brave assistant, Leticia Garcia, is here to share her past life experience with us today. And so let me bring Leticia in. Hey, Leticia. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to have you here with us. So thank you for being on to share. So I know you're really kind of a private person, so this is a big deal.
We're going to make it happen.
Yes, we are. So I like to start with just people getting to know you a little bit. So let's start with where you grew up.
So I grew up in Laguna Hills, which is South Orange County here in Southern California. And I currently live in San Diego, California.
Okay. And I only found this out after we did your session when we were talking later on, but where were you born before you grew up here?
I was born in Tijuana, Mexico.
Okay.
So right across from where I currently live.
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on because I think that was important when I found that out.
Okay.
Okay. And then do you want to share anything about your family growing up or your family today?
Yeah. So growing up, my mom was a live-in nanny. So I grew up with an American family and my mom and my sister. And so I only have my mom and my sister. And my dad passed away when I was 21. And I'm almost 35. Next week, I'll be 35, which is crazy. Yeah. I still think I'm 15, but that's okay.
Well, especially since I thought you were like 25 the whole time I've known you. So anyway.
I know. And then I just have like a marketing background and I went to college here in San Diego and I have a psych degree.
Yeah. And you've been my assistant for not quite 5 years. I know that we had a little break there.
Almost 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
November will be 5 because we met in November.
Wow. So November. So Leticia is the brains behind everything I do, just so you know. And I do my best to not mess up things. Not always.
Right.
I'm not always good at that.
Maybe sometimes in the show you might hear me in the background like, go, Vondie, go.
Right, when we're trying to start things. I'm not talking yet or I'm talking too soon. We're still getting this figured out. All right, so thank you so much for being on with us today. All right, so let's start with a little bit about what you remember from when the session started, what year it was roughly or century. Do you even remember?
Was it 17 or 18th century?
Yeah, and I changed it in the event because I couldn't remember, but when I listened to it this week, it was 1700s.
Okay, yeah. 1700s. I remember it was in the beginning of the 1700s, and I was in Massachusetts.
Yes, and what was your name?
My name was Viola, and I remember I had freckles and green eyes.
Yeah, and you were how old?
I don't remember that part.
Okay, that's okay. I just listened to it. I didn't either until I listened. I remembered you were a kid, though. You were 10, remember?
Oh, in the beginning, yes. Yeah. I was 10 when we started. Yeah. I remember it was raining, and there was mud, and I was, like, in the village, like, town center area.
Yeah, and there was like a kind of an angry mob. I don't remember what was going on, but do you remember that scene much?
I just remember it was raining, and I remember I was in mud. And I remember I had black shoes on, and I was wearing a dress. And I remember that there was like all the angry people. But it was weird because I remember I told you it was raining, but I saw fire, which I don't know how that works, but I remember that part.
Maybe it was just drizzling. But didn't they have like pitchforks or something?
Mm-hmm. They had pitchforks. And then I remember at some point I left and I went into the woods. And I was in the woods alone a lot. That I remember.
Yeah, it was a lonely life. But just to back up for a second, did we ever figure out what the whole pitchforks mob fire they were holding, what all that was about?
I remember we said something that someone got stoned or killed.
Oh, that's right.
But we don't know the reason why, but I just remember someone got killed.
Yeah, so it was like a public stoning or
shaming or something like that. Yeah, okay. But we don't know why.
Okay, because you were 10 and you didn't really know what was going on.
Exactly. I was like, I'm leaving. I'm going in the woods to hang out.
Yeah. Yes. And then I remember asking you about where you live and the meal. And you, at this point, I think this is when you were 18, but there you were by yourself. And I said, who looks after you? And it was like a lady down the street or something.
And it was like a tiny house, I remember. And I remember there was a fireplace, and like it was just like one big room, kind of a house.
Yeah. And did you live alone or with other people?
That part I don't remember. I think I lived with that lady for a while.
Okay.
But I don't know how I was related to her or anything. That part, I don't think we figured that part out.
Well, and I remember there were people around in the life and in that scene, but I said, are they family? And you said no.
No.
And then we went back to the childhood, which is where we started to fill in the gaps. And one of the first questions we ask is there a mother and a father? And then usually I say, what do they look like? What's their personalities like? And when I said, is there a mother and father? Was there a mother and father? No.
Because I remember that I was left at the church in a basket.
Yeah. You said they left me. And so then we went back to find out what does that mean they left me? So if it's all right with you, we'll go ahead and play a little bit of a video clip. It's the audio from the session and a little bit of pictures. Okay. What part of the world do you sense you're in? What's the name of this place?
Massachusetts.
Okay. And first impressions now. What is your name? What do those people call you?
I'm cold and I'm crying.
And are they leaving or they're already gone?
They're already gone.
Where are you outside?
Outside a house, like in a basket.
Tell me what happens next.
I get picked up by a nun.
Okay. What's happening and why is this such an important moment?
I'm back in the church. When baby Rose died.
How old was baby Rose when she died?
She was 8.
How did she die?
She got scarlet fever.
And why are you back in the church? Is it a funeral?
It's a funeral.
Wow. How was that to hear that, Leticia?
It makes me sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to take a minute or you want to keep going?
We can keep going. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and part of what we found out was there was some grief that was still there for sure. So I remember saying, let's go back to the time before they left you. And you said you were with the mother and the father. I think they were holding you and you were sad. They were sad.
They were sad. But we never found out what happened.
Right. Well, I said, you're a baby. I know you can't understand what's happening, but what is the feeling? And you just said that they're sad. And then the next scene was, you said, I'm in a basket. And what do you remember about that?
I remember the nun part. And then I remember we talked about that I was probably in an orphanage because there was other kids there. And there was a lot of beds. That part I remember.
Yeah. So for me, backing up to the basket, that was like the crazy part. I said, what's happening? And you said, I'm in a basket. And I said, where are you in a basket? I'm on a doorstep. What's happening? And I think that's when you said it's cold.
And I think it was raining too. There was a lot of rain.
In Massachusetts, there was a lot of rain. And then you said, I hear church bells. So I think it's a church. And then a nun came and picked you up. So a Catholic church. So they left you on a doorstep of a Catholic church. And just to let you know, I see people are watching and there's sad faces. Exactly. I see the sad face. Yeah. I put a little note last night on the Facebook. I said, just be warned. This is a sad one.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you surprised to find yourself in a basket on a doorstep? A church doorstep.
I wasn't expecting that. I didn't have any expectations. I was like, wow, okay, we're going there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think even before when you said there was no parents, I said, would it be important for us to find out how you how they left you or what happened, and you said okay. So we always kind of check just to let people know we don't just push you into this. We kind of check, is this something we should explore? And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you were like, okay, yeah, here we go. And so yes, they left you in the basket. The nun found you, and then you said you were with a bunch of other kids, and they sang and did chores.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I did that as a kid here in this life, so.
Sang and did chores?
Mm-hmm. That was like our Saturday thing. It was, the radio was on and you knew it was chore time.
Okay. And I asked, how was it to be there? Because I thought, is it a positive experience? And you said no, that it was sad and lonely.
Mm-hmm. Because I don't think I made friends or anything. So I know in my session we never really talked about if I had friends or anything like that. I know I got married later, but even then, like, I wasn't close to my spouse at all.
Yeah, I remember. Okay, so I'm just going to look up and see if there's anything else in the childhood I wanted us to mention. I don't think so. So then the next thing was moving forward, a significant moment in the life, and that was when you got married. So you did get married.
Which is kind of weird because that's like the age I'm almost now. And I also feel like at that time that's like considered to be an old maid. I feel like back then everyone got married very young and I didn't until I was older.
Yeah, people probably didn't even live much longer than that. I know around the turn of last century, people's life expectancy was 50. So you're right. That would have been really old for back then. And then especially because you went on to have a child.
Mm-hmm. And then I remember I died. Was it in my 60s, 70s?
68.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's old. Back then.
For the 1700s, you bet. Okay, so I'm just going to look up here a little bit at my notes. A happy moment was...
when I had Rose in the meadow, we were playing in the meadow with the flowers.
Yeah. And first of all was having her. And then when I asked who was the most important person, it was baby Rose.
It was baby Rose. Mm-hmm.
Which brings us then to, do you want to say anything about the meadow? What that was like, being with her? She was 3.
She was 3. I just remember we were just like exploring with the flowers and just enjoying nature, which I feel like I didn't do too much because it was always raining, I feel like.
Yeah. So this sad, lonely life finally has this bright spot, baby Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which then brings us to the turning point of the life, the major event. Do you want to say much about that?
When she died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she died when she was 8 from scarlet fever, which I feel like that was a common thing back then. Mm-hmm. And then I remember we had a funeral, which to me was interesting because I didn't know, like, I don't know, did they have funerals for babies that died? Was that a thing? I don't even know.
Apparently.
And in my life it was.
Yeah, and it was the Catholic priest. So the church was there throughout the life, which was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Because I remember, I think he even asked me if he was the one that married me.
Or if it was the same church. I think I said, was it the same church from where you were dropped off? And you said, yes, it was. Mm-hmm. So that was something consistent in your life. And then I said, is your husband there? And you said,
he wasn't there. So we don't know what happened to him. Maybe he died or he left to go work somewhere or something. We don't really know what happened to him.
Yeah, we didn't focus on him too much. He wasn't your most important person. Baby Rose was.
Mm-hmm.
So then you were alone again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't think there was much else other than at the end of that life, I said, what did you think about this life? And you just said very, very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And was there anything else about the life that you remember before we talk about what happens when you crossed over?
I'm trying to remember, but I think that was it. I think that was it that I remember.
And I just see that we have a comment. Sad, but wonderful. Yeah. Okay. And then you crossed over. And before, I have this whole thing I go through to get you to connect with your guide. And it's like 10 minutes before I even...
Was it that long?
Oh, it's long. Maybe 5 minutes. Before I could even start it, your person already showed up. And it's very rare, but it wasn't a guide. It was a loved one. And do you
Hmm.
want to say who was there when you crossed over to meet you?
It was my Nana Maria. So it was my aunt that passed away a few years ago.
Yeah. And so I kept doing my little going through the garden, and you were just like already, you were like, she's here. I don't know
I
why.
already ran to her and everything. And Vondie's like, look at the flowers. And
I
I'm like, we're
know.
not looking at the flowers
No,
right
no, no.
now.
Okay. So how was it to have your Nana Maria be there when you crossed over?
It was very emotional. And it's weird because I don't remember seeing her, like seeing her face or anything, but I just knew it was her.
Yeah.
Somehow I just knew it was her.
It was her energy. Yeah. Like I said, as soon as we crossed over, she was there to meet
And I
you.
remember I started crying.
Yeah. 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 And I said, what is your relationship to this soul? And she said, daughter.
Hmm.
And later on, I found out she actually raised you when you were a baby.
Hmm.
For how many years?
About 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, those are the important years. We know child development. That's like the main time. Yeah. So she was a mom to you.
Hmm. She was like a mom to like everyone in my family. She was just very motherly and very nurturing, even though she was harsh. She was a harsh Catholic woman, but
Oh, Catholic.
my mom's family's Catholic.
Okay. Sorry I interrupted. Finish what you're saying about your aunt.
I mean, she was harsh, but she was loving anyway. And she was just like a mother to everyone, and everyone in my family, like my cousins and their children, they would call her Nana Maria too.
Yeah.
So that's
But,
just how she was known.
but especially for you because your mom wasn't around.
Hmm. Right.
So, yeah. Which I didn't know till you called me after the session to say, Vondie, do you want
What'd
to
you
say
do to me? It was
it?
emotional 2 weeks afterward.
Yeah, you had a lot of feelings come up. As we said when we talked, you said, wow, 300 years worth of grief,
Grief.
that's been hanging out there waiting.
And I remember I told you I feel like an open wound right now. This is too much.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. I'm glad you reached out.
Me
Glad you.
too.
So when we asked her, what was the purpose of that life? Do you remember what the purpose of the Viola life was?
I don't remember.
I only know because I just listened to it.
I haven't listened to it.
He said for you to know your independence and your strength.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And then in this life, it was to find love and have family.
Yeah. Find love and know happiness and know love. And I said, how will she know love? And she said, through your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it wasn't all bad in the end.
No, it was.
It was just intense.
It was. Well, and what I didn't know until afterward, well, first of all, was that your Nana Maria basically raised you in those important years, but also that you hadn't had a chance to really process her loss because you were so busy. So you got hit with the loss of the last life and the grief from this life.
Right. It was a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I called you. I'm like, this is a lot. Is this normal?
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you feel about that you got all of this kind of came to the surface for you?
I mean, in a weird way, I wasn't ready for it and I didn't know it was going to come to me. But, when was my session? Like 3 weeks ago? Right now, I think I feel like a bit more healed than I did before. And I feel a bit lighter. Like I don't feel like I'm carrying so much stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So much emotional baggage.
Yeah, because we can carry stuff from this life and from previous lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad it turned out to be a happy ending.
It did. It was just a little gruesome for a little while, but I was like, this is something.
Yeah, this is big. And you were right in the middle of also some other big stuff going on in your life. You're like, oh my God.
I'm like, this is not the time, Vondie. This is not the time to be grieving.
Exactly. Okay, let me look and see what else. There were some messages from your Nana. Your life is exactly where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think she was telling you that for?
I feel like I'm the type of person that if I get something in my head, I kind of go for it. and sometimes I feel like I go for too much.
Mm.
And I feel like lately, these last few months have kind of slowed down a little bit. And I focused more on like my family, finding a partner, which I did, and just kind of more life meaningful stuff. It's not just about career and like moving ahead. So I think now that I have the other missing pieces, I can now keep going forward with whatever I want to do now.
So
I have
like,
that foundation, life
right,
foundation.
that you're in a good place.
I
Okay.
have that support system.
Yes, absolutely. And especially given that you had no support system in the Viola life.
Very true.
Yeah. All right. So let me see if there's anything else we left out. She said you did very well. Yeah. And that mostly she wanted you to know happiness in this life and that you're not alone anymore. So is there anything else you would like to add or share?
So after all of this and processing everything, I thought about how my past life has impacted this life. And I know we talked a lot about baby Rose. And another weird thing is, ever since I was a little girl, in the house I grew up in, there was a rose garden. It was just like it was like the trim of the house, but we weren't allowed to touch the roses because they're like, oh, you're gonna like cut yourself. But when the flowers would die and the petals would go on the grass, I would collect them and I would put them in a little like potpourri jar. And that's what I did as a kid. And then as I've gotten older, I've gotten flowers and I've kept them dried.
Roses?
I have one right here. And so like now it makes sense to me like why I'm so drawn to roses.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that makes sense now. I'm like, okay, that makes sense why I always see roses and like I kind of stare at them for a while or I sniff them or whatever and then I go on with my day.
Wow.
So it all ties in, which I didn't know. And then another thing is, as we talked about, like my past life has been lonely. And in this life, I'm very introverted still, and I still have that wandering thing. I like to be by myself still. But now I'm just like, I'm open to having people in my life and being affectionate. And, that's clearly something I didn't really have in my past life. And so like my love language is definitely like physical touch, which is interesting. But it makes sense now why I am that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody else, Wendy wrote in, wow, joining us. Wendy's part of our team too, and she's close to Leticia. So that's wonderful. I was thinking when you were sharing about the roses, it'll be interesting when we do your Life Between Lives session, if you're still up for that, to see who was in your soul group, from that life. I'll be curious to see if Rose is in your, and if she is in your soul group, if she's in this life.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Like, who's in there? Because I feel like with some people, like I just feel automatically connected to, and I never know why. And it's just with some people, it's easy for me to be open with, and I'm just like, there has to be a reason why. I just don't know the reason. So maybe they are in the soul group, and I just don't know.
I'd be interested to find out. I was going to say something else about you being an introvert. I love that thing you shared on Facebook. It said something about introverts being adopted by extroverted friends.
Yeah, that is me.
So you've been adopted by a lot of extroverted friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that too, because I have two friends that I've known like my whole life. And it's like, I never let them go. I'm just like, I need you forever. And, we've grown up together and it's just weird that I have something like that. Since I did it in the past life, we talked about that. I didn't have friends.
Yeah. So in this life, you are finding love and happiness. Okay.
So
all right.
I'm not entirely wounded from the last life.
When you healed from the last life. And it was, this is the part where, you wanted to show or know that you had strength and independence. And you certainly have that in this life.
Yeah.
So
it's not all in vain, all the sadness of
68
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I can think of that kind of what the old life brought into this one that I can think of.
Yeah. And then processing the grief from Nana Maria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that
I
was a
can
double whammy.
I can show a picture. Let's see.
I was going to ask you if you had a picture.
So I don't know if you can see it, but she's holding me. And this is
Oh,
my mom, this is me, and that's my Nana Maria.
well, God bless Nana Maria.
And this was when we lived in Mexico, and I think this was probably like 1990, 89, 90.
Yeah.
And of course, we're eating like always.
Yeah, that's a Mexican thing. I understand that.
We're always eating, and half of my pictures are of me eating when I was little. I'm like, didn't we do anything else besides eat?
Well, as she said, in this life, you have the love of your family.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, that was a really vulnerable experience and still very fresh. And so I really appreciate you sharing with us. So, do you want to hang out in the stream for a little bit, or do you need to take a break while I wrap up? Either way is
No, I
fine.
could stay here. It's okay.
Okay. All right. Then let me just say thank you again, Leticia, for sharing with us today and for everything you do for me all the time. I have adopted you in case you haven't noticed.
I noticed. You're welcome.
All right. So let me just look up and let everybody know if you would like a past life experience or life between lives, they actually go together. You do the past life and then the life between lives. You can book a discovery call on my website, and it's lifebetweenliveshypnosis.com. I think Leticia is typing it right now. We forgot to.
I found it.
My husband's also helping. We forgot to ask him to do that. So thank you.
There it
And
is.
then we are on all the podcasts now, if you want to check us out there, and social. And we just appreciate your support with us with our new show. And then I think the last thing is, as we transition into our Brave series next Friday, I know it's 4th of July weekend, so our show will probably be kind of short, but we're just going to be talking about where are you being called to be brave in your life, and especially as we reflect back on the goals we set at the beginning of the year. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you again, Leticia.
You're welcome.
God bless.
Thank you, everybody.
And we'll see you next week. And Leticia will be here in the background, even if she's not on camera.
Yep, I'll be here. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And join us next week for another episode of Soul Guide.